our Unit 3, Question 3. And that is, what are the major arguments for and against judicial review? And there's two other bullet points. We're not going to read them. You may begin.
Judicial review has its faults, but the pluralism of our government will uphold and protect the original intent of the framers. Chief Justice John Marshall set the precedent for judicial review in 1803 case Marbury v. Madison. In 1861, President Abraham Lincoln spoke out against judicial review in his first inaugural address, advising if government policy is to be irrevocably fixed by decisions of the Supreme Court, the people will have ceased to be their own rulers. Considering the judges to be the ultimate arbiters of the Constitution could lead to an oligarchy. However, court appellate process and selective incorporation can check a justice's power, as seen in the 1935 ruling of Palco v. Connecticut. The Supreme Court ruled that the Fifth Amendment is not incorporated by the 14th Amendment to the individual states.
Though lengthy, lifetime tenure shields judges from the political pressures of our nation. Before the 1954 case, Brown v. Board of Education, Democratic majorities supported racial segregation. Justices were able to set a new precedent in favor of civil rights, despite the fact that this was an unpopular viewpoint. Former member of the KKK, Justice Hugo Black helped overturn the 1896 case, Plessy v. Ferguson, with this ruling, establishing that separate but equal is still inherently unequal.
Justice Black went on to dissent the upholding of McCarthyism in the 1951 case Dennis v. U.S., and later espoused the separation of church and state in the 1962 ruling of Engel v. Vitale. As the judicial branch is a life-tenured appointment, Justice Black did not have to fear being voted out of office and was protected from potential impeachment by Congress through the Good Behavior Clause of Article 3, Section 1. Critics of judicial lifetime tenure argue that justices will often be stuck in ideologies of the past. Justices are not elected, making the Supreme Court an inaccurate reflection of the ever-changing Democratic majority, making them unfit to have the final say in our nation's course of direction.
President Thomas Jefferson expressed concerns about judicial bias in his 1820 letter to William Jarvis, stating, "Justices have, with others, the same passions for party, for power, and the privileges of their courts. This potential schism between the people and the court is prevented by the justices' young law school clerks, who are put in place to assist their old mentors in revising cases, preparing oral arguments, and assisting judicial options." In Federalist 78, Secretary of Treasury Alexander Hamilton claimed, "The interpretation of the law is the proper and peculiar province of the courts." Hamilton argues that the courts are the realm for the judges, as they are more educated in the plan outlined in the Constitution than the average American citizen.
While there are arguments against the judges and their province, we relinquish the fear of the potential biases and trust in them to put the Constitution above all else. Hamilton's support of judicial review articulates, "No legislative act, therefore contrary to the Constitution, can be valid." Judicial review ensures that public authorities act in ordinance with the law and that all legislative acts reflects the tenets and the ideals of the United States Constitution and are in ordinance with the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as outlined in the Declaration of Independence. Thank you.
Time?
3:17.
3:17.
We overcut.
This third question.
Are we still going with 3 cross-sex questions?
Yeah, 3 cross-sex questions. I'll let you guys ask the question.
Okay, so in your guys' testimony, you guys mentioned like Justice Hugo Black and how he's protected from potential impeachment by Congress through the Good Behavior Clause. The founding fathers didn't define what good behavior was. So can you guys give me some examples of what good behavior is and isn't?
Well, being, as the president appoints justices for the Supreme Court, they background check, or there are no requirements to be a Supreme Court justice, but there are background checks for like state justices. So for a Supreme Court justice such as Hugo Black, he had no requirements. So, but the president is not going to elect just anybody. So he makes sure that he is an honorable appointment for a justice.
Going back to the ideals of classical republicanism, if you're working towards the common good, then I think that should be considered good behavior.
Sanity and use of the faculties is also a part of the good behavior. That's how we check judges to make sure that they're still competent in their job. So for example, there is a judge, I believe in the 9th Circuit of Nevada, that is in an older age, and many attorneys are beginning to question whether he still has good behavior and if he should be impeached or not.
I disagree with Maddie because this issue has happened several times in our history where justices lose their mental facilities or they grow very ill or they are simply aging. And there's no just way to remove the justices. It has never been happened before. There's no precedent for what we can do to relinquish this. So I believe that the good behavior clause should be altered to include mental state so that we can make sure the people who are deciding what laws are constitutional are able to do so.
Who reviews that?
Congress.
Okay.
But like they don't have any specific way of removing the justice due to mental health. They can try to impeach them, but they have to have a basis for impeaching them, acting on their own self-interest or acting against the common good or giving a biased decision can lead to this impeachment, but simple mental health impeachments have no precedent.
So one more question?
Yeah. Could you, if you were in charge of all the courts in the United States, would you choose to make judges be elected, or would you choose to have them appointed? Could you argue your points?
I would, if it were up to me, I would choose to have the justices appointed due to the fact that they're not there politically, they're not there to be elected, they're not there for your point of view, they're not there for the Republicans, they're not there for the Democrats, they're there to recognize the law, to see court cases and see what is constitutional, what is not, and if they should be convicted for a crime or not. It's not political. They shouldn't be elected. It's more of the educated elite who are in this. And
as Jacqueline said, going in line with Aristotle's philosophy that the philosophical and the educated elite should be guiding our country, I agree that the Supreme Court and all justices and all judges down to the federal level should be appointed and not elected because they are meant to be a separate and independent court, not affected by the sway of political bias or be able to be bullied by their own political party. But this issue also comes into question if we look at history with Marbury v. Madison and all of the judges rushed in just under the time limit to make sure that the courts remained separate from the public's shift because Democratic majority is very inclined to shift by mob majority and that the mob will take you whichever direction it sees fit. So we see that justices can be affected by political bias, but I think it's a simple fact that the courts should remain independent as much as they can be.
Additionally, here in Nevada, judges are appointed and elected because if someone steps down, then an appointed judge replaces them until the next election, and they can choose to run for re-election or other judges can run for re-election. So I agree with Nevada's system because we appoint people, but then we can also elect people, so the people get to decide who judges in Nevada.
And history has shown that under the Andrew Jackson presidency, that the spoilage system, it's not a very good system, and that's kind of why appointing judges is not a good idea because if you just appoint your friends or things like that, you're just ruining the government.
Okay. Hey, you wanna start?
Want me to stop?
Yeah, stop that.